Welcome. My name is Jeff Russell, and I'm the CEO of Delta Dental of Iowa. This is an exciting time for the healthcare industry as we prepare for healthcare reform, changing the way people purchase and access healthcare benefits. While many of the reforms impact medical insurance, there are significant implications for dental insurance, such as the requirement for pediatric dental benefits. We're pleased our lawmakers recognize the importance of dental care and improving access for Iowa's children. As Iowa's largest and most experienced dental benefits carrier, Delta Dental is proud to support ABI and its members to identify the information you need to make informed healthcare decisions. Thank you and enjoy the day.
It depends. If it was pre-tax in the first place and then you get them back, they are taxable. If they weren't pre-taxed, then they're not. So, it's another one, as Lisa said, often our answers are, it depends. Let's see. Okay, do we want to go back to, oh, I'm sorry, Okay, this is my only new slide in here, so I apologize. The next several slides here from Sean and I have in our presentation are out of date because of this late in the day, July 2nd announcement on the website, right? Which was very strange. It was that's right. It was a blog post, and the first things I saw were from the media. Rather than the usual benefits sources. You know, I thought somebody briefly, I thought that somebody had hacked into something and this was a joke. I was seriously, because I was looking at the usual sources and wasn't coming up with anything. But anyway, I think as you all know, they announced a delay in the large employer mandate and the reporting requirements until 2015. I think actually they said they decided they needed to delay the reporting requirements because there wasn't guidance out and there wasn't time, and because they delayed the reporting requirements, they couldn't really enforce the mandate. And that said, I don't know how much time people want to spend on the large employer mandate and look back periods and all of that, because now it's not effective till 2015. But we can.
Why don't we gloss over, and then maybe at the end we can cover the large group.
Okay.
Sure.
Maybe one of the key questions that, with regards to the delay, is the measuring year or the start year still the same, or has it also progressed a year?
It's also progressed a year now. Excuse me. It's my understanding, and when some guidance comes out, this could change. But initially, just for the transition period, which was 2013, usually you're looking at the calendar year prior as your period for determining whether you're a large employer. And they had an exception that just applied to 2013 as a transition year, where you could do any consecutive 6 months in that year. And we were saying until July 2nd, we were saying, well, at least by July 1st, you need to be paying attention. You know, obviously for most employers, they know whether they're over or under 50. It's not a big deal. But if you're close, you need to be paying attention. I don't believe, it doesn't look like there will be a transition period now for 2014. So I think, as far as we know now, it'll be the entire year of 2014 that you'll use to determine whether you're a large employer for purposes of the mandate in 2015. Yes?
This is kind of a general question, but I'd be interested in hearing some panel comments regarding trend lines in prep for this legislation. I know anecdotally, you hear on the news that employer such and such in Florida is taking all their employees to so many hours. I have a close friend who's a anesthesiologist in the St. Cloud area, Minnesota. Their group intentionally has started to get below the 50 number. They basically said, we're going to get below the 50 number, period. You know, I'd be curious as to unintended consequences, what you're seeing and hearing from the other people as you're out and doing this. I mean,
And you're talking from a hiring standpoint.
I'm talking from a hiring standpoint. I mean, one of the big surprises to me personally, actually, this is a great sheet, but a lot of people, I farm, we're sole proprietorships. A lot of people were assuming that the small business tax credits applied to sole proprietorships. Now you find out that actually in some respects they don't. And the other thing is, if you have insurance, it doesn't apply either, even for people that are, you basically, you know, are there any folks or are there any small businesses that are saying, we're gonna drop coverage so everybody will move to the exchange, or we're gonna drop coverage so we can start a new company after the start date, so then we can get the credits. Are you hearing, that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in hearing from you folks on.
Yeah, I've heard, some just anecdotes. I haven't seen that personally with our clients, but then probably Mitch and Sean are working more closely with some of the companies on those types of things. I don't know, Mitch, have you seen?
I can say of all the, I guess the clients that I have my hands on or see, I don't see any that are purposely either not hiring or not planning on doing capital improvements, or, you know, looking at this as kind of saying, okay, I'm at 45 or 46 now, I want to stay there so I don't get above 50. I can say for my clients that, like I said, that I have my hands on, I don't see anybody making that kind of decision. I guess I can kind of speak to what Alice said. You know, that's kind of one of the, you know, you read the legislation, you read the commentators, and then you read what their planning techniques are. Well, what you just touched on, you know, that's one of the things. Okay, do you plan to, you know, get your part-time employees underneath that 30-hour requirement? Do you do things to try to do that so they're not considered, you know, a full-time employee, or get below the full-time equivalency number, that magic number of 50? I've seen, you know, planning ideas, and that's one of them, but have I seen a client of mine actually, you know, take the bull by the horns and do that? No. I haven't seen any of mine that are, you know, taking that 50 number and keeping that in the back of their mind as far as any other business decisions that they're making, at least at this time.
I would agree with both Alice and Mitch. I have not seen that amongst clients, but it's been a question that's been asked frequently. You know, what can I do? In fact, our recent presentation that Alice and I did, we had a gentleman who was asking a very similar question: how do I stay below this? You know, and what I would caution everyone as they're thinking about it and strategizing what they're doing, what are you doing today? What would you have planned to have been doing tomorrow had this law not been here? And what does the law really change from what you're doing or what you were planning to do? By way of example, the gentleman we were talking to about a month ago had a small business. He was actually just approaching the threshold to be required to offer qualified affordable health insurance, and he was offering qualified affordable health insurance. And he, but for the law, had no intent of changing the path that he was on. It may or may not was going to have a fiscal impact, and that premiums might go up and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, he was going to continue doing that, but he was really focusing on how do I stay under 50 to get out of that employer mandate, when the fact of the matter was he wanted to grow his business and be more profitable, earn more money, and was going to be offering his employees health insurance along the way anyways. And my point being, you know, what I would caution everyone to do is focus on what your core business is and what it is you want to do with your core business. And is the law affecting that or not? If you're not offering health insurance and you're a small business today and you wouldn't need to tomorrow under the employer mandate, and you're growing and you're going to become large enough to be covered by the employer mandate, I think then you have a real question to ask. What am I going to do? But if you're offering health insurance now, and before this even passed back in 2010, you were already on this trajectory of growing your business, having major medical, you want to be employer of choice, all those things, I can't think of any good reason why you would change that path that you're on now. There's not enough of a fiscal impact not to do that. Again, you're offering insurance today, you're not covered by the mandate, you're growing, you may be tomorrow.
I disagree with that. There is a financial impact on your business, so there's not maybe a lot you can do about it, but your health insurance premiums have gone up as a minimum basis because of the Unaffordable Health Care Act. And I completely, and then you've got the taxes that will go on effect per belly button. Which estimate to be $15 per belly button per month.
Yep.
For everyone in your organization, of which your folks are wanting to know who's going to pay for that. Well, indirectly, they're going to pay for it. So, while it may be easy for you to say it doesn't have a lot of impact, you got to chart your course. but it reduces your margins.
I agree with
Part
you.
of that issue is you gotta figure out how to deal with this terrible legislation. And, you know, that is taking place where I'm spending more of my time than I should, as a leader of our company, trying to figure that out, whereas I should be figuring out how we're gonna be more successful in our business. So I think it has a big impact.
I agree with everything that you said, and all of those things are absolutely true. But things change legislatively all the time that affect businesses, minimum wage, FMLA, I mean, all of those things happen. It does increase the cost, the cost of health insurance is going up regardless of the Unaffordable Care Act. They were continuing to increase because the medical inflation was going up. I want to go into a whole bunch of apostolizing about what I think about the Affordable Care Act and what they addressed or didn't address. But every employee you hired still has wages that you have to pay, the taxes that you have to pay, and any benefits that you offer. As a percent of that, the additional cost in totality may not be as much of a percent impact as it would be as if you had to start buying insurance altogether. Which for small businesses today who aren't offering it, who would have to offer it tomorrow, that's where I think it's a big financial impact. I mean, a material financial impact. That makes sense?
Well, but here's my issue on that. I think we just take it. Because of what you're saying, the attitude is, well, let's just take it. And you know what? I'm getting to the point where I don't want to take it any longer. And part of the issue is that's why this bad legislation is being pushed through, because of people just saying, well, let's just take it. It's not going to impact your business that much. When indeed it does impact your business a lot. And you get to a point where you know, sooner or later you say, how much more are you going to take of this? How much more taxes, how much more healthcare costs that impacts things that don't create value for your customer? And therefore, you don't have the pushback to Washington.
And the pushback to Washington's working. That's one of the reasons the employer mandate got punted for another
No,
year.
that's a political reason. It's a political football to put it off after the 2014 elections, so it doesn't become a political football. So to me, it's not working. That was a brilliant strategy on the administration part to shove it off and hopefully go under the radar. And I don't think it is. I mean, how the Congress goes through these motions of saying, taking these votes to repeal it, but have they taken a vote to defund the thing? No.
No,
So
I would
the
agree.
thing is,
Washington is a mess,
It's a
but
total-
it is being heard, and it's not just being heard because of what I would call traditional business owners who might be on a more fiscally conservative bent. But even the unions are now starting to come out and saying, listen, this employer mandate thing is bad.
The cities, counties, and schools, I just read an article in IBD, none of them, they're all saying, we can't afford the thing. And so, but they're the ones that passed it. They're the ones that supported it.
So, speaking personally,
Yeah.
not for ABI or merit, my fingers are crossed that momentum will keep going, that it will change. Because you're right for all the things that you said. And where my initial response comes from is we got to deal with what we have to deal with today. And I don't think anybody in this room thinks that it's been a good idea. You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think they had good intentions, but it just is not a good path.
Robin?
Well, I just wanted to mention that something that's disturbing to me is it feels like, you know, this employer mandate was just the start, because, you know, now we're hearing from Senator Harkin's office that he has legislation that he's preparing to require paid sick leave for, you know, part-time employees. And, you know, so it just seems like, you know, there's just more and more and more for small businesses to have to try to deal with, when most of them are extremely benevolent employers already.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. For 20 years, I've been working with small businesses, and with rare exceptions, they are all benevolent. They all care about their employees. They all want good things for them. They want to grow their business. They want their employees to do well. I don't want to turn this into a political conversation, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. And the only way any of us can do anything, I'll take a nonpartisan approach, is vote with our conscience when we vote, and hopefully, you know, majority can have some impact.
The other thing worth noting, I read an article that the IRS has hired 1,300 people just to enforce this, in the next few years, so.
As
Good luck with
big,
that.
there's a ton
Because
of
there'll be
people.
penalties,
Until
so
they're
we'll fund
videoed.
it. Exactly.
As a follow-up question, you know, in your particular positions, and I think you answered, you know, regarding you're not really hearing about, you know, some of the anecdotal stuff that we're seeing on the news. What would be your advice from a tax planning perspective, from a legal perspective, you know, from a small business perspective? What would be your advice to somebody that's sitting at 51 employees today, or somebody that's sitting at 47? You know, when they sit down with the calculator and figure it out, do I want to be in the large employer group? Do I want to be in the small employer group? I'm sure that you guys have run some, or somebody has run some numbers saying, here's the actual check that you're going to be cutting. You know what I'm saying?
I have been a party to something similar to that, looking at large employers deciding, do they want to keep health insurance or get rid of it and pay the penalty?
Okay.
And there is some models out there, Milliman Actuarial will do a model like that. It is pretty comprehensive. The company that I actually did it for has about 400 and something employees.
Okay.
And today, that employer pays about 50% of the employee-only premium. I wouldn't say that he's an generous employer, but he's covering the minimum requirements by the carrier. It would cost him to drop it, replacing people's contributions so they could put the money back in their pocket so they can buy it in the exchange. It was going to cost about $2 million more to get rid of health insurance than it was to keep health insurance, which was, I had no idea that's how that analysis would roll out. And at Milliman, they did a good job. They break it out down to each line item taxes that you're paying. The excise tax, if you don't offer insurance, is a post-tax hit, so there's additional cost that Mitch could probably be more eloquent than I can on how that impacts the bottom line. But yeah, there's definitely companies out there who've done the model. Whether you're going to sit there and not hire employees, that depends on an individual business, I think, and what your opportunity lay. If hiring one more employee is going to add an additional $10,000 in expenses, or $110,000 in expenses, but you're going to earn $1 million more by adding that employee, I would hire the employee. I mean, if you're going to make only $50,000 on a $110,000 investment, obviously you wouldn't do it.
A lot of companies
So it's going to
utilize
depend.
the temp agencies. So I guess kind of what I'm looking for is the companies that are looking at transitioning from the small group to the large group,
Mhm.
they've been utilizing temp agencies, but now do the temp agencies fall underneath this? If they have 500 part-time workers or people that are out there, then do they have to offer all these benefits to their temp agencies?
I'm going to pass this
That's
back
the
to
perfect person.
I'm going to pass it back to Alice here. I don't think they've given any guidance to temp agencies. I have a close corporate friendship, if you will, with a temp agency down in Des Moines. She's just taken the bull by the horn and said, I'm going to go out and get health insurance for my employees. There's a concept of joint employment that exists out there and how that's going to play in, and whose employees really are they. I mean, I can tell you right now, my guess is, this is just a guess, if you've got a temp for 3 years, they're not a temp. They're a full-time employee of yours in any business, and should be treated as such. So
They are
they're
now, though.
they're
The IRS isn't coming back and.
no, but they will here in the future when people will be able to, because if you open up that door, then people could just go, you know what, I'm just going to get temps from everybody else.
Right.
And that'll be a loophole that they'll try to jump through. And I'll tell you, and I can't think of the gentleman's name from Sasayo, the attorney who wrote much of the regulations that came out of HHS, he's left HHS to go work for a law firm to specifically look for PPAC violators. So, I mean, they're going to be looking for all this stuff. I wouldn't suggest trying to avoid it that way, because they'll catch on.